It's time for a good old-fashioned Q&A, MMA fans.
Yes. All right, here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment has arrived to hear from the man himself, Ariel Helwani. Live from the Box Studios in beautiful
I mean, there was
New York
actually a few
City.
things that I could
It's
have
on the nose. And
also
now,
addressed.
to
I
answer your
kind of ran out of
questions,
time.
Get out of your seats and on your feet because here he is, Ariel
Did your kids
Helwani.
ask who Dylan Dennis is and why?
No, they know everything. Shout out to Ben the Bane. I wanted to get him in there. He's fighting on the next Misfits card, amazingly, against Anderson Silva's son. I mean, that might be the most shocking news of the actual hiatus. Unbelievable. Hiatus, by the way, which rhymes with anus. I don't know if you know that. Let's go to the questions. Andrew Oliva, what a first question. I probably should have addressed this right off the top. Ariel, how the hell you been? That's the first question. Tremendous. I've been great. Thanks for asking. I had an unbelievable trip with my family, with my parents, with my siblings. It was amazing. It felt good. You know, sometimes you go away, you're a little anxious, you're a little nervous. Will you be forgotten? Will you be out of the loop? All these things. But it was nice to try and unplug. Actually, you know, one of the great revelations of my trip, I was not on the Eastern time zone. I was not in North America, and there's a good period there for the morning going into the the lunchtime, post lunchtime block where no one's bothering you. You're not getting a text. You're not getting emails. You're not getting called. You're not getting anything. And it made me think, man, I should live on this time zone, but do business here in America. I did feel the pain of the overseas fans having to watch, these pay-per-views overnight. That was tough. The pay-per-view in Boston, but then the Singapore and France cards, those were great. Those were perfect. Actually, I was back for the France card, but you know what I'm talking about. Singapore was tremendous, right in the middle of the day. So I've been great. I feel great. I'm actually going to Phoenix later today for another project, which I'll tell you about. It's actually a real sports story, which unfortunately today was announced that the show is coming to an end at the end of the year, which is just mind-blowing. It's been around 29 years. HBO Real Sports, hosted by the great Bryant Gumbel, 29 years on HBO. HBO's longest series, coming to an end at the end of the year. One of the great honors of my life is working on that show as an intern in 2003 and then as a correspondent last year. Only one story of mine has aired, and that was the one on the World Series of Birding last summer. I actually have 3 in the oven. I have no idea now if all 3 are going to air by the time the show says goodbye. One, 1,000% is going to air next month, and that's why I'm going to Phoenix tonight and then returning tomorrow. More on that later. But yes, exciting things. Happy, healthy, grateful, appreciative. It is good to be back. Play Florida. How do we get to a place where Merab asking for a title shot for himself or an Aljo rematch gets turned into a narrative of Merab not wanting the title shot? The fans seem to be listening to Dana, O'Malley, or both. Put on your promotional hat and tell Merab how to right this wrong. This whole situation, I mean, one of the great things about being away for a minute is like when these press conferences come out and then you're just watching them and you're wondering if you're living in some sort of bizarro world where people actually believe this shit and eat it up. Like you listen to Dana White talk about Merab and Aljo and you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? The situation has been rectified. Aljo's not the champ. You don't have to worry about this. Why are we now so worked up over the notion that Aljo and Merab don't want to fight each other? They don't have to anymore. Aljo's not the champ. Merab's not the champ. There's another guy who is the champion. And so that problem has been solved. And so you either want to give it to Merab or you want to give it to Aljo or you want to give it to neither of them. But why is he so worked up over the fact that these guys don't want to fight each other? And why in 2023 are we still talking about this? It's their decision. If they don't want to fight each other, don't make them fight each other. I mean, we always hear from the UFC brass and from any promoter, like, can't make the guys fight. All right, so you can't. So let them deal with the consequences. But now we're in a situation where Merab is saying, all right, I'm next. And Aljo is saying, Merab is next. What's the problem? And if they want to give him an immediate rematch, Aljo, which they probably won't, let's be honest, given his relationship with the brass and all that stuff, the whole thing is very easy. Now, if they go the Cheeto direction, then it's still rectified. I don't understand, basically is what I'm trying to say, why the Merab Aljo thing is still a thing. It's not a thing because Aljo isn't the champion anymore. So why are we still talking about this? Aljo is saying, give it to Merab or give it to me. But he's not saying we're not going to fight each other. Like, does the UFC, do they feel the need? Does it have to happen that Merab fights Aljo now? Number one contender fight? I could see it if they weren't friends, but I could also see 1,000 other people, maybe not 1,000, but at least 2 or 3 being very worthy of that spot as well. You want to go Merab, you want to go Sandhagen, you want to go Henry Cejudo, Cheeto obviously in the mix. That's at least 4 guys that could be the number one contender. And I'm not even talking about Aljo. I just don't understand it. What it really comes down to, I do understand it. The UFC doesn't like to be told, and Dana White doesn't like to be told what to do. And he doesn't like when fighters try to dictate, their career, especially at top. This is why he's annoyed with Dricus du Plessis. I mean, the notion that Dricus du Plessis wouldn't be ready to fight 2 months after fighting Robert Whittaker, the second best middleweight on the planet, I don't know who could have predicted that. Wow, what a shock. That was a mistake. That fight was a mistake. And they had to go with Sean Strickland. But now they seem to be mad at DDP. And, sucks for DDP. Khamzat may win on October 21st, and he may, be left on the sidelines. Or Paulo Costa may win on October 21st, and he may be left on the sidelines. We'll see how that whole situation plays out. But you could tell Dana White is upset that he didn't take the fight. Dude fought 2 months ago. Literally 2 months ago. Less. July 8th. That was when he fought. And he fought Robert Whittaker and beat him. He deserves a bit of a break, and he deserves a proper training camp to fight the best middleweight on the planet. But they don't like when you try to tell them, when you try to, it's like, no, we got our thing, and you're either going to fit in this slot, and if you're not, the train is going to move along, and sucks for you, peace out, we're out. It's just the way it is. It's the way it's been. Look at the history of the UFC with John Fitch and Josh Koscheck and Roy McDonald and GSP. DC got ahead of it and moved down because he didn't want to fight Kane, but this has always been the thing, and it just annoys them when you try to dictate or you try to make the situation work out for you. It doesn't sit well. The beauty of the Aljo situation from the UFC's perspective is he's no longer the champ, so this isn't an issue anymore. The problem has been solved, yet for some reason it's being painted as an issue. I don't understand why. Abe, hello, Ariel and crew. Eugene Behrman said recently DDP's taking his shot for granted and now shouldn't sit comfortably, thinking he's next, given how fast things change in the UFC. Is he right, or does the rivalry need settling? Secondly, okay, let me answer that. The rivalry needs settling. The problem is he fought in July, and this whole thing was kind of botched. Now, I say botched given like the matchups. From a business standpoint, it wasn't botched because they sold it out, they sold it out in hours without even a main event, with just Bam Bam and Alexander Volkov as the top fight on the card, the chief support, and that's how they sold it out. So they're in a great spot as far as the popularity of the sport in Australia. But Dan Hooker should be on this card. Jack Della Maddalena should be on this card. DDP should be fighting Izzy on this card. But for some reason, they loaded up the July card with all these guys. And so they had to deal with the situation. Now, there's a ton of Australians on this one, but just none of the real big ones that I just mentioned. And so I understand where Eugene is coming from, but I do think that a win over Robert Whittaker should stamp your ticket, and he should get a title shot. The problem is Khamzat Chimaev is fighting on October 21st. That's in a month and change. If he wins in Abu Dhabi, he's going to get on the microphone and call out Izzy, and everyone's going to go gaga over that. And that July win over Robert Whittaker is going to feel like a long, long, long time ago. And so he's in a tough spot. What he has to hope for is Izzy wins on Saturday night, and Khamzat versus Paulo isn't a great fight, and they say we'll go with DDP. Or, selfishly, he has to hope that one of those guys is banged up and Izzy wants to come back sooner rather than later, and he can slide in there. But yeah, the puzzle pieces aren't exactly fitting right now for DDP, and that's unfortunate because he has done enough to earn the title shot. 1,000% he should be the number one contender. You beat Robert Whittaker, you're that guy. It's just he wasn't ready to go 2 months later, and I feel bad for him because most people wouldn't be ready to go 2 months after fighting Robert Whittaker. Secondly, on a similar note, if both Izzy and Khamzat win their fights, McGregor aside, can you think of a bigger and more anticipated matchup Then Adesanya versus Chimaev. Izzy used to talk about fighting John Jones at Raider Stadium in 2024. We know that ain't happening. But I believe if built correctly, Izzy versus Chimaev could be just as big. Am I getting too carried away? Much love, your boy Bay. No. I mean, Khamzat needs to fight a little bit more. His last fight was a year ago this weekend, believe it or not. That's when the whole Nate Diaz thing happened, which is just crazy that it's been that long and he wasn't injured. And, hopefully he gets in there October 21st and we'll see how it goes. But yes, it would be one of the biggest fights of the year. Now, don't forget, Conor coming back would be gigantic and will be gigantic because I do think he'll be back in 2024. And UFC 300 is going to be gigantic regardless of who fights on the card. But, I mean, if everything works out timing-wise, I could see Izzy versus Chimaev headlining UFC 300. And I wouldn't put Conor on UFC 300. As I think I've said on the show before, I would get 2 bites at that million plus buy, pay-per-view Apple. Conor on 301 or 299 gets $1 million, and then 300 just by virtue of being 300 and probably a stacked card will get $1 million as well. So, but yeah, the timing could work out, and what a tremendous main event that would be for 300. Newman. Hello, Ariel. Hello, Newman. Welcome back from your hiatus. I hope you had a great time with your family and are enjoying your new pearly whites. Thank you. Yes. Turkey was fantastic. Look at the hairline, guys. You see the hairline? See the teeth?
What do we have done? Give the full list. What do we have done while we were gone?
I did the thing here.
Yep. Hair transplant. Yep.
Yeah. And then those
teeth,
things,
you said?
the teeth that all the guys get, the cool guys. And that was it.
Did we do the ab sculpting like Oscar? What else did we do?
We may have done a little bit with the calves, but I'm not quite ready to reveal those. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, the Jack Grealish calves. I was looking at those. So yeah, I mean, but the hair. How about the hairline?
It's strong as ever.
I think so too. Some might say I didn't need it, but I felt like I needed it. I was getting a little bit self-conscious.
I would dare say you actually need, like, if anything, you'd have to reduce,
the reverse.
Not add. Yeah, you need the reverse. Your hairline is as strong as humanly possible.
Thank you. I hope you had a great time with your family and are enjoying your new pearly whites. I too have decided to take my long way to return to the On the Nose segment today. Welcome back. Max Holloway proved once again that he is still dominant at featherweight with his spectacular KO of the Korean Zombie at UFC Singapore. It doesn't seem like he's going to get another title shot anytime soon, as long as Volk is still the champ. Agreed. Do you think Max's next fight will be at 55? I say no. And who are some of the potential opponents for him? I personally would love to see him rematch Charles at 55. Not bad. What do you think? I mean, there's options. I guess we're going to get Topuria against Volk. There was someone going back and forth with Max. Who am I forgetting? Brian Ortega? I mean, I have no problem. He was going back and forth. Giga's out there. It really depends on what Max Holloway wants to do at this stage of his career. Is he okay just fighting these tough guys? Or does he want to test himself at 55? There's a plethora of guys at 55 for him, but he was a little small for 55. So I'm cool with just like seeing a string of Max Holloway master classes. I'm cool with that. And I think he gets paid pretty well. So let's just see him continue to win. This guy's taken, he's taken a lot of damage and he's looking great and he's still holding up and he's beating tough guys. Let's just keep winning. That's what I would say if I were his team. Dominic Helwani, I'm curious on your thoughts on what's going on in the pro wrestling world, from the recent passings to CM Punk being released, and maybe the next time you'll be covering a WWE event. Also, there's a follow-up here from Zach M. Hey, Ariel, as someone who does not follow wrestling as intently as MMA, would you be able to provide your thoughts on the loss of Bray Wyatt, a.k.a. Wyndham Rotunda? I saw the news. I instantly thought of your interview with Triple H where you had asked him about his return to WWE. Can you put in perspective the impact he had on the sport, what his legacy will be? Helwani 10-7. I woke up to that news, and I mean, talk about a knife in the heart. I mentioned on the show that when I was a little bit out of the wrestling game, I really got back into it in April of 2020, the beginning of the pandemic. There was nothing going on, and I decided to try and get my kids into it, and WrestleMania was coming up. And there was the Firefly Funhouse match Bray Wyatt versus John Cena, which blew me away. Like they turned it into like a mini movie. And then I knew of Bray Wyatt, but I wasn't so familiar with the Fiend character and the the Funhouse and all that stuff. And I was just blown away by his brilliance. Like he's just an absolute brilliant mind. And so he really got me back on the train. And he was at the very top of my wish list for sit-down interviews. And I've talked to his agent before, Jordan, who coincidentally is from Montreal, and I tried to set it up, but the timing was never right. And I actually, when I was backstage at Elimination Chamber in Montreal, which coincidentally, unfortunately, was his last time on WWE TV, I saw him backstage. I never met him before, and he couldn't have been sweeter. He's just like a big teddy bear. And we talked for a bit, and he said he wants to do the interview, and I was so excited because he's such a brilliant mind, and he comes from a legendary family. And it was just a great interaction. It was a great conversation, short but really, really memorable for me because he's kind of like this larger than life guy. And then unfortunately, there were some reports came out that he wasn't feeling well, and then out of nowhere, we find out that that he passed away suddenly. Horrendous, horrific. And unfortunately, this has happened in the world of pro wrestling before, where someone dies way too young, and the athletes, the entertainers are kind of forced to go on television and just put on a brave face and deliver, and they did that on that Friday night SmackDown. But I just can't. I mean, he came back in October at Extreme Rules in Philly after the DC special guest referee match, and it was so exciting. And it was a new layer to his character, and it was brilliance once again. And my heart breaks for his family, for his wife, for his kids, for his friends, for his colleagues, for his coworkers. It's just an absolute tragedy. One of the best wrestlers of the last 10 years, one of the best minds, one of the most talented, gifted sports entertainers of the last 10 years. And I don't necessarily love that term, but it kind of applies to Wyndham Rotunda because he was just so damn brilliant. And was able to evolve and give himself new layers time and again. Really an absolute tragedy, heartbreaking. And so I was super bummed to read that, and still can't believe that he's no longer here. And then, of course, I think that you're referencing the CM Punk release, firing, whatever you want to call it, from AEW. I haven't really been paying attention to all that stuff for various reasons. It sounds like, Tony Khan's hands were tied and he had to do what he had to do. And I get that. You got to save the locker room. If someone is, proving to be an issue in the locker room, you have to think about the whole. And I see a lot of people saying that they want me to interview Punk. I haven't talked to him in a bit. I don't know if I would be his first choice at this point. Would love to talk to him if he wants to, but I don't think I would be his first choice for whatever reason. I look forward to hearing his side of the story, but ultimately I think based on what we've seen out there, Tony had to do what he had to do as the leader, and to try to right this ship and to get people, to believe that the locker room can be a cohesive unit. Unfortunate for them because it was such a big week for the company. By the way, speaking of real sports, there's this whole thing that I hate Tony Khan and all this stuff and AEW. I don't know if I've ever said this in the midst of all of it. It kind of slipped my mind. When I was hired by Real Sports to be a correspondent last January or so, the first story that I ever pitched, the first subject that I ever pitched for a profile was Tony Khan. Son of Shad Khan and their family's history, and now he's going up against WWE. That was the first thing, and I pitched it pretty hard, and I thought I had a chance. But in the end, for various reasons, the threshold, it's really hard to get something greenlit. And I do think that there was some trepidation because of conflicts of interest, both under the WBD, the Warner Brothers Discovery umbrella. But that's how interested and, quite frankly, how impressed I was by what he had done in a short amount of time. That's completely, besides the point. But I do wish them the best, and I think if you ever, what's going on here?
You good?
Yeah, did Masvidal join?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what threw me off. That you.
Yeah, because he just said let's go, and I wasn't sure. And so if anyone watches this show, I always root for the underdog. I always root for the B league, the other entity, competition, all that stuff. Wish them the best, and it was a big week for them. And I think that the wrestling business is in a much healthier spot with a solid number 2. So those are some thoughts there. Is he ready or not yet?
1 second.
All right. Steven is up next, or Stefan. Shalom, Ariel. Welcome back. Dare I say this return is more anticipated than the return of the Notorious One. I said it so you don't have to, but maybe that's because we know you'd actually return. Wow. Shots fired. Anyway, my question this week is, how do you sort out the mess at heavyweight? A lot has transpired since you departed, but Sergey Pavlovich seems to be finding a home as the backup. Second time? Really? Anyway, is Gunn really the best next fight for Tommy? It seems like a fun fight, but Tommy's prowess on the ground leads me to believe it shouldn't be competitive and is risking derailing his momentum for a twice-failed title challenger. And what should UFC do in the event John and Stipe both retire? I wouldn't expect John to make a quick decision either way. Ciao, your boy, Lanzi. I still feel like the biggest fight is Tommy Aspinall versus Sergey Pavlovich. Well done, Frank. If they think that both guys are going to retire come November 12th, and they want to save Aspinall versus Pavlovich for a vacant title fight, then maybe they save it and Pavlovich gets his payday as being the backup, and Tommy Aspinall should fight Cyril Gane. I strongly feel like Tom Aspinall should be on that Madison Square Garden card for the same reasons that Chito Vera spoke of. But that's in 2 months, and I mean, we just talked about someone turning around in 2 months. I can't believe November is in 2 months, by the way. Very weird, a bit depressing. Anyway, to me, the biggest and most interesting non-title fight at heavyweight is Tom versus Sergey. Would I love to see Tom versus Cyril? Yes, but I feel like Tom versus Sergey is a real big fight. An intriguing one as well. And so they could go one of two ways with Tom. I think that they can either go for the Sergey fight or the Cyril fight. My vote is the Sergey fight, but I won't be mad if they go with the Cyril fight because I think eventually he gets Sergey as well. So we know that John Jones versus Stipe Miocic is happening on November 11th. In fact, they just officially announced it while we were on the air. They also announced Derek Brunson versus Roman Dolidze and Jessica Andrade versus Mackenzie Dern. They didn't add a quote-unquote co-main event. There's a chief support, but I don't think there's a co-main event. And historically, when you have a guy like John Jones out there, you don't put another title fight on there. Conor McGregor as well, which leads me to believe that they might do Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington in December and Yuri Prochaska versus Alex Pereira, which would then lead me to believe that maybe you save Sean O'Malley for the beginning of January, or if you're going back to Brazil in January, maybe you save Alex Pereira versus Yuri for January. Leon Colby, Sugar Cheeto would be a tremendous 1-2 punch to end the year. So there's a lot of options there. They also announced Mackenzie Dern versus Jessica Andrade, Matt Schnell versus Steven Erceg, and Joshua Van versus Kevin Borjas. Those are the only fights that were announced. GC was telling me about the ticket prices. It's not on here, but you seem to know the ticket prices, GC.
Yeah, I'm seeing some people with like early access saying like $700 for nosebleeds.
Wow.
MSG.
Yeah, it is MSG.
John Jones.
They also officially announced, by the way, October 14th main event is Sadiq Youssef against Edson Barbosa. So that is going... Well, it's not really going head-to-head with the Misfits card because that's going to be during the day here in the United States. And also, by the way, before we actually went on air, a bit of history regarding one of Frank's favorite fighters, if not his favorite, Amanda Serrano. Did you see this news, Frank?
I didn't.
Amanda Serrano going up against Danila Ramos on Friday, October 27th at the Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando, Florida. Perhaps do a road show for that. She'll be defending her WBO, WBA, and IBF featherweight titles in a fight that will be contested at 126, of course, and it will be historic. Why? 12 3-minute rounds.
There we go.
as you know, Frank, women's boxing title fights 10 2-minute rounds. Amanda Serrano, the trailblazer that she is, said, I want to be on equal footing. She's going 12 3-minute rounds. So that was also announced earlier today as well. Back to the questions. FTMMA, hey, Ariel, with the continued rumors of Bellator's sale, I don't know if it's the same, but sure. Are UFC fighters coming to the back end of their careers running out of legitimate options? To both Bellator's detriment and credit, they've been a place for UFC fighters to see out their final days, earning good money in legitimate MMA competition. Without them, the only options appear to be retirement. Okay, joining the BKFC influencer circus. What about PFL? The PFL format is far too taxing for fighters in this position. Perhaps they keep Bellator alive as a brand to do non-tournament fights, such as for fighters like Rockhold and Weidman, and their upcoming PPV model seems much more geared towards prime signings, influencers, and self-made talent than UFC, or for lack of a better word, has-beens. I'd love to know your thoughts. Look, there's multiple layers to this, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as it becomes more and more real, and I think it will be in this third-ish quarter of 2023. On the con side of things, it's one less option. It's one less place. If some random entity was buying Bellator and running it, taking it off Viacom's hands, you can make the case that would be better for the fighters because that would just keep another option available. On the pro side of things, PFL becomes a lot stronger. Their roster is a lot better, and things get interesting on that front. Perhaps most interesting of all, people keep asking, where's PFL getting its money from? Well, we just found out earlier this week, $100 million has been invested by Saudi Arabia into the PFL. They're going to be doing events in Saudi Arabia next year. This is a massive deal. We've been waiting for the Saudi Arabia influence in MMA. We knew it wasn't going to come to the UFC because the UFC has their deal with Abu Dhabi. Saudi Arabia, obviously very influential in the world of football/soccer, very influential in the world of golf, boxing, pro wrestling, horse racing. They have been very influential in the world of sports. It's one of the biggest stories, if not the biggest story right now in those sports. And so now they're coming to MMA. And did I mention boxing? Maybe, but yes, boxing, of course, as well, October 28th, and Ngannou Fury, which tomorrow there's a press conference for that fight, TBD. No, did I say TBD? What did I want to say? BTW. TBD, BTW. Anyway, so they're now involved, and they don't get involved in a small way. And so we'll see what this means for MMA and for PFL. But now all of a sudden, the answer to that question, where they're getting their money from, this would be a big answer. And they have endless supplies of money. So let's see what happens. I don't necessarily agree with this take from FT, where he's like, oh, there's no more options. I mean, now PFL is a real true option, and you got this pay-per-view model, and who knows how, extensive that's going to be and how many shows they'll run in 2024, all that. So let's see. I get what you're saying. It's one less option, but let's be honest, Bellator hasn't really been involved in the free agent game for quite some time. They're just kind of fizzling out, and that's just the truth, unfortunately. There's not a lot of buzz, not a lot of promotion, not a lot of attention, and it seems like they're kind of in this like lame duck transitional period before they get sold, and everything I'm hearing is they will be sold, and it is rather imminent. I also am hearing that the WWE UFC merger under the Endeavor banner is going to be official very soon as well, so stay tuned for that. A lot of big things happening in the world of combat sports. CK Damon. Francis Ngannou versus Dana White is one of the biggest feud stories of the year. The announcement of Ngannou Fury is arguably the climax of that feud. That being said, I have a two-part question. How is it possible that no media member has asked Dana White for his reaction to the blockbuster announcement? Is that true? I don't know. I mean, I'm not there in those rooms. I see those. No, has no one asked that question? Does GC, have you seen a clip of someone asking him that question? No, not one person. I feel like someone has asked him that. No?
I haven't seen a clip, but I would imagine someone's asked him at some point.
And then the second question is it possible that some form of gag order was placed on the media from broaching this subject to Dana White? I mean, nothing would surprise me, but I feel like people think that stuff happens a lot more than it does. You know what I mean? It's going to be interesting. You know, it's going to air on ESPN Plus pay-per-view, and Nate and Jake just aired on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. I can't imagine Dana loves that. And so I wonder how it's going to be covered and all that stuff. But I don't think there's any gag order. And I don't think that, I don't think no one's, I think someone has had to ask. I just, kind of tuned all those silly press conferences out when I was away. It was really good for my mental health. Brandon, yo, Ariel, at what point do we start including Izzy in the GOAT conversations? If he wins this weekend, he will have 6 title defenses to his name and be a 2-time champion. His only meaningful loss, in my opinion, is his loss to Pereira, which he then went on to avenge. How many more wins does he need to rack up in order to be in the same conversation as Jones and GSP as the GOAT? Does he need to win the title at 205 to be considered? No, not necessarily. And I don't think it's fair to Jan Blachowicz to just dismiss that loss. He won fair and square. Here's what's most impressive about Izzy. The UFC is lucky to have someone like Izzy because of his activity. This is going to be his 4th fight since July of last year. And during that stretch, he lost. He got knocked out, and he still got back on the horse quicker than most champions out there. And he got the belt back, and now he's fighting again and was willing to fight, on a month's notice after getting this fight and the DDP fight falling through against Sean Strickland. They're very lucky to have him, have Alex Volkanovski, have a guy like Shigashan who wants to come back in December and not just sit on the win. He is getting into that conversation. I like to talk about the GOAT when they're done. I didn't really, maybe I'm wrong and I'm getting old. I felt more comfortable calling GSP one of, if not the greatest of all time, once he was done. Once we know the entire body of work. Because let's be honest, he can end the career with 4 straight losses, 5 straight losses. Does that affect your GOAT status? I think so. If Michael Jordan, was totally crap by the end of his run, people would think a certain way. If LeBron was totally crap, and I know Jordan played for the Wizards, and I know they didn't make the playoffs, but he was still, he had no one around him, and he's freaking Michael Jordan, 6 titles, 2 3-peats, blah blah blah. Let's see how the whole story plays out. But yes, what Izzy is doing, especially this year, after losing in November and coming back in April and now fighting in September, is nothing short of amazing. And I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if he fights again by the first quarter. He's talking about UFC 300. That's around the first quarter, late first quarter of, 2024. It's unbelievable. He's one of the greatest champions, one of the greatest fighters, and they're very lucky to have him. Matmo, bonjour, Lord Ariel. For UFC 292, my friends and I had a watch party, and someone brought a dynamometer, which is a device you squeeze to measure your grip strength. We had a blast messing around with it, and I couldn't help but think about how much fun the MMA Hour crew and future in-studio guests would have with it. They're cheap, about $20 on Amazon. I know GC likes ordering stuff, so why not order one, keep one in studio, and have in-studio guests, whether fighters or not, give their all on the dynamometer. Am I saying that correctly? And by the way, everyone has to touch it. It's kind of gross. Anyway, I think it would be fascinating to keep a database to look back at years from now and see what the highest grip strength. Would also love to see who on the crew has the highest. My guess is Frank. God bless and thanks for what you do. Do you guys like this? Should we buy the dynamometer? Which you've now just... Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I've seen about $20 on Amazon.
Does it sound like a good fun, like a good time? Like, does it
it's just something you literally squeeze, and
doesn't seem that fun to me to just squeeze something
the
random.
Juice isn't worth the squeeze.
It sounds like you're nervous about what your grip strength is.
I don't want to touch. I don't know who's doing what, who's washing their hands, who's gross, who's not. I don't know what Frank's doing back there.
You don't want to know.
Yeah, the darts thing. We haven't done that in a while, so maybe we need to get back on that horse.
Yeah,
played some darts against Connor over the weekend.
You know what I was thinking? The show August 21st was great. One miss was we should have had a GC versus Rick darts game.
That's what I said, but Frank shut it down.
What?
Yeah. We would have to move a camera. We didn't have any of that prepped.
What do you mean? That takes 2 seconds. Joe does that in his sleep.
Nah. Frank said no. Frank said no shot.
That was a miss.
People were asking for it.
People were asking.
Are we not going to address the massive no sell on the call out of Connor to you?
I don't think Ariel watched long enough. I think he must have turned it off. Vacation or something.
Yeah, it was vacation. What happened?
Okay.
People
sat
were
in your
asking
chair, called you out.
Yeah, people were asking about the darts. I was just like, whenever you're ready, man, put put your broadcasting belt on the line. Let's play a real 501. None of this 3 darts versus 3 darts stuff. I mean, the people have been clamoring for it
By the way,
forever.
that's what was going on as I'm showering you with praise. You guys are like fucking dancing on my grave. That's the kind of friends you guys are? Jesus.
I don't think it's
I don't know
dancing
if
on the
that's,
grave. man.
dancing
It's
in the
just-
grave.
It's just a challenge.
Feels like
Every time I bring it up, every time I'm just like, let's play some darts, you're always just like, nah.
Nah, busy.
Yeah, better things to do. Can't be bothered.
See,
Frank
nobody
took on
wants
the
to see
challenge.
me play because there's no stakes. Because I know I'll suck. Like I have nothing on the line. Like I'll lose and
Trying
be
to
like,
hustle
great.
us right now.
Yeah, I feel like
You
this
find out
is
he's a
set up.
professional
You will-
dart player.
No, you'll see. No, you'll see. I'll suck.
Why
Trust
did you?
me.
But why didn't you guys play on the day? You didn't feel comfortable,
I
right?
Frank
remember
said
us
no.
having a brainstorming session. You were like, "You guys have carte blanche. Don't worry about it. I'm on vacation." And now you're coming back saying
Yeah,
you
I'm
missed
just
something?
asking why didn't you do it? I'm not saying
it was
you.
a camera thing.
Frankie, shut it
You
down.
do. Did I not say you had carte blanche? I mean, I
You
could
did,
have
and
said
then-
that more times.
So then
You guys played
should
over
be
the
happy
weekend?
with what happened.
Yeah, I played Frank over the weekend.
Where'd you guys play?
My crib.
Who won?
Who do you think? Come on.
I mean,
Let's be serious.
it started off pretty good. Let's be serious.
Frank got a couple
do
lucky
you think?
20s and then he fell off a cliff.
I got too excited.
Mm.
Started missing the dartboard.
Oh my!
He started talking some trash. Yeah, I was just like, all right.
I was not going to beat
Finish
the
it
guy
up.
in his own house. Like, come on, that's not. The night was young.
So it's out of respect. I get it.
Yeah,
get
no.
it.
Did you hit the wall though? Like, did you put?
Nah, because there's a giant Ariel Helwani
Ah,
bumper
sick,
around.
sick. That's.
Well, it's an MMA hour bumper, but
I was gonna give someone a signed bumper if they guessed the lineup. Yesterday, I asked,
It was a tough one.
yeah, I saw a couple good guesses though.
Did anyone get close?
I think someone got at least 2 of them.
That's not close. That's less than 50%.
3?
That's not bad. Cole, Ariel, what are your thoughts on Sanko making her well-deserved pay-per-view debut this weekend? Also, if any, what changes would you make, or do you foresee in the UFC commentary boost in the future? Huge, well-deserved, well-earned, historic. First time since Kathy Long, in the very, very, very early days that a woman is on the broadcast booth, so to speak. Obviously, there's been backstage, the desk, all that, but not alongside Anik and DC in this case. So it's gigantic for her. Remember first seeing her on the Invicta broadcasts and to see how far she's come. And also one thing that is sort of overlooked, like the UFC historically, other than Jimmy Smith, doesn't put non-ex-UFC fighters in those roles or non-UFC fighters in those roles. It's just been Jimmy Smith. And so for her to be a non-UFC fighter and a woman and to make it to this point is gigantic. It's huge. And she should be very proud and honored and grateful for the opportunity. It's gigantic. As far as what changes, I don't think any changes need to be made. I think their A team, if you will, is great and people love them and they're very popular and they have good chemistry and no problems whatsoever. I think their B, C, D teams. I mean, the UFC historically has always done a great job of finding the right talent. There's never really been stinkers. Even dating back to the days of Kenny Florian filling in, Randy Couture filling in, they've always seamlessly transitioned and done a great job and represented. And even now with, it used to just be Goldie and Rogan, and then they'd bring Randy once in a while, or if Rogan didn't go, they'd bring in Kenny. And now they've got so many different teams and people at their disposal, and all the variations are great. I think all of their play-by-play guys are great. Obviously, Anik, Brendan Fitzgerald, and John Gooden, all great. I think all of their analysts are great, from DC to Rogan to Dominic Cruz to Paul Felder to Michael Bisping to Laura Sanko. Am I forgetting anyone? I don't think so. I think their desk talent is great as well. If I'd say change it, I would just say I would love to see Anthony Smith. Oh, Paul Felder. I would love to see Anthony Smith get a shot. I think Anthony Smith would be fantastic in the booth. Alan Joban as well, I think would do very, very well. So those are some guys, but no, they've got a great team. Like, I don't think anything really needs to be changed. I mean, you compare it to some of the other teams too. I like PFL's team as well. They do a great job. Also, he says, if I may, question for GC and Rick as well. First, great job on the solo show, gents. Congratulations. And you see more people just chat, Hope to see something similar in the near future. You will. There's a upcoming episode that is on Yom Kippur, I think September 25th. So you'll see the boys back, and they can, and they could further dance on my grave. Go on more vacations, he says, Helwani, this guy. All right. Who do you think Felder should fight in his Shirley retirement fight? Thanks for the show, and love to have y'all back in my life. What's the question, though, to GC and Rick?
Read between the lines.
I think it's just the Paul Felder thing.
Oh, okay, good. I don't have to answer it. Who do you guys want to see?
No, I can't answer it. I can't answer it.
Who do you guys want to see Paul Felder fight? Anyone?
Anybody.
It sounds like Paul Felder is fighting. He's back in the pool.
If he fights, supposedly he's back in USADA. If he fights anyone, I'll be there no matter what.
Did you just actually say the Mbappe meme? Did you just actually verbalize the Mbappe meme? That's incredible. Also, you know what I love when people post the clip, like when we post the lineup, and it's the clip of Pep Guardiola, and it's like,
get in trouble.
No, the one where he's like, "We will be there."
Yeah.
We will be there. What if it's Real Madrid? We will be there.
That's another great one.
That is tremendous. Did you guys see that video of when Pep, his son, was playing soccer in New York?
No.
I'm not that deep in the soccer game.
Oh my God. Really? I thought you were
Football
like, do you know who he is?
Yeah,
Rick?
yeah. Oh,
Rick, do you know who he is?
Yeah, I'm aware-ish.
Pep Guardiola is the manager for Man City, was also for...
My context is only through like memes and clips, though. Like I don't have
just like a
any
legendary
knowledge beyond that.
manager. He's like kind of like the winningest guy these days, Phil Jackson, whatever. When he left, I think it's when he left Barcelona to go to Bayern Munich, he took a year off and he came to New York in like 2011 or so. He just wanted to live in New York and be out of the hysteria of Europe. And his kids were around like 12, 11 years old. And they were living, I do believe, on the Upper East Side of New York City. And his, I saw this on Men in Blazers, by the way. Shout out to Men in Blazers. Love the show. And his kid was playing in a soccer league, like an under 12 soccer league. And one particular day, and no one really knew who he was because, soccer not that popular, especially back then here in America. And one particular day, the ref doesn't show up to the game. And so there's a kid who was playing at the time on this league. He's telling the story. He's now like 20 something. And he volunteers to ref the game. But because he's a brilliant manager, as he's reffing throughout the game, he starts like coaching the kids. He starts telling them like, you need to go here, you need to go there, you need to do this. The parents on the sidelines start talking during the first half. And they're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He's just supposed to be the backup. Like, just shut up and ref the game. Who the fuck are you? They have no idea who he is. So at halftime, they all confront him and get mad about like, don't talk to my kid. Don't tell my kid what to do. He's here. He knows plenty about soccer, football. And so they tell him like, keep it down. He's like, you know what? You don't want me to ref? I won't ref. I'm just going to sit on the sidelines and shut my mouth. Then word starts to trickle throughout the game that it's Pep Guardiola. And then at the end, everyone feels very stupid and goes up to him and apologizes and says like, holy shit, like we were just getting free instructions from one of the greatest managers of all time. We're the assholes. Now, this video and this clip is a lot more entertaining than me telling it to you guys. It's funny hearing the kid say the story. I don't even know why we started talking about this. Why did I get on this tangent? It's a great story, though. I love it. Why did we talk about it?
Why did you get on this
You were talking about replies. You were talking about a reply
the killing Mbappe.
Oh, yeah.
I have in fact seen this clip, by the way.
Oh, it's a great clip, right?
I'm seeing it right now.
I've already seen it.
Oh, why did you stop me then?
And I saw the interview with the kid.
Yeah, the kid's great.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any video of it. I'm looking at the kid right now.
Yeah, it's the kid telling the story.
No,
yeah.
I think I've seen video of
There's-
him
there's-
actually, like doing
there's
it in the
footage
game. He's
in
like,
the video.
Oh, no,
showing-
yeah, I see it.
Yes.
showing
He's
him,
wearing
yeah.
the red jacket.
Yes, there's footage of him walking up.
These
and
are
down.
like small kids. Yeah,
Yes,
this is ridiculous.
It's amazing. I mean, imagine that. That is unbelievable. I don't even know. Yeah, that's crazy. I'm so entrenched in football these days. I can't stop thinking about it. Anyway, great stuff. Thank you for the questions, everyone. We love you all. Thank you to moderator Lewis. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it very much. Hey, if you like this video, give us the old thumbs up. subscribe as well. You could get many more of these videos on the channel, so please do that. We would love you forever if you did so.